This company, Torque Parks, sent me this awesome heavy-duty airbag suspension kit for my 2020 Ram Power Wagon. Now, this truck comes from the factory as a 2500 with shock and coil suspension in the rear, which on typical trucks of this caliber class 2 trucks, they will have leaf springs in the rear, especially if you have a solid axle. This is a solid axle rear end truck, and I believe all of the 2 Series trucks are. But this truck is unique that it is an off-road vehicle, so it has solid axles in the front, which most people would not want. So if you're in a regular 2500, you have IFS or independent front suspension, but this has solid axles and solid axles. But it is meant for off-road, so high articulation with good traction means that you're going to need better soft suspension and the ability to flex in that way. So they put that soft suspension in there. What that limits is the weight that you can put in the bed of the truck before it starts to sag. So I currently have an airbag suspension product in my truck, or you can kind of see in this area here, that little hose adapter is the fill port for that airbag suspension. Now, this airbag suspension specifically has these 2 plates, the pass-through for the air fill, some bolts there, and then this, which is a part what I would have to take off normally, but I'll be just taking off this original suspension. This part here is the frame welded bump stop holder, and inside it you can see there's a nut, but that nut is actually welded to the inside of this piece. These bolts that are coming through are from the plates below and the bags themselves. Now, this has been beat up pretty good because this has seen some off-road, because that's what the truck is made for. So this is actually a little bit harder to take off, and I thought I'd have enough time this evening to do it, but without doing some hacking, I wasn't able to take it off that quickly, so we'll get to it another time. Obviously, if you're doing work like this, be really safe. I leave the tires on because you can still do this with the tires on the vehicle. I use a jack stand to separate this gap here. Obviously, check that gap ahead of time to make sure that there's nothing that can get pinched in there. So don't put your body in here, but I could easily reach my arm in here and unthread this nut. And even if the jack stand failed, it wouldn't crush my arm because this is still enough space within this wheel well to not do that. So use caution when doing this. I would recommend leaving the tire on unless you have a good lift, and you can just do it really easily without the tire. Now, back to the actual product itself. You saw that that lift had a really thin, or 2 really thin plates. This from Torque Parts is super, super heavy. This is really heavy steel. This is also nicely powder coated. And one of the things that I really like, when I unpackaged this, I was looking at the bags, and the bags didn't have numbers on them, even though each piece was individually wrapped. But when I unwrapped the pieces, you can see on them individually, especially obviously if they're unique pieces, there's a number laser engraved into the actual plate. So each piece has its own number, which is super helpful when you go through the instructions to figure out how to set this up. I obviously lay everything out because I want to make sure I have it all. And the only critique that I have is it would be nice, even though I don't want this option, to have a T-fitting that would allow you to synchronize the filling of both bags at the same time. In current state, this has 2 fill heads and no T-fitting, which would allow me to take these 2, connect each one side to a T, and then one side back to the truck. Now, that's what I currently have on this truck. For the 2 airbags that I have them, which this truck is equipped with the Ram boxes, which allow me to bring a bunch of junk with me, and they're really messy right now. But in this box, I have this, which is the fill for those airbags. And I have a little tiny pump that I keep because they're small enough. You can use one of those roadside miniature pumps that you would get for a small car or a regular small vehicle for basketballs and stuff. And this little USB-C charging device allows me to fill these bags up. And what I do is, before I'm going to pick up a heavy load, I will put that little device in this box, locked with it plugged into this, filling it up just in here, and that will allow me to fill up the bags while I'm driving. Once the bags are full, the back end feels terrible. It is really hard, and that's what you get on a typical 2500 series truck, is a really stiff rear end, because they typically have leaf springs. Now, these airbags are added because this is an off-road truck. It has shock and coil, which helps you in off-road situations, but obviously is not really good for putting weight in the bed of the truck. So when I finally remove these, which I'll cut out the lower pegs on the bottom of this that are stuck, and install this, the newer and much better quality kit, hopefully it'll last longer. These bolts are thicker and there are better zinc coating on them. You can see that right off the bat. But I will actually take them up on their offer of 2 different fill ports, because I would like in the future to be able to put a camper of some sorts, probably some home built thing as you would expect me to do, on the back of the truck. And just like I have airbag suspension in the Jeep, which is parked outside, which I've converted into a camper, I would want to be able to level the vehicle at a campsite while I'm stationary. So then I could pump up one side and leave the other unpumped. Now, this is all of the instructions. They're really well done. It tells you everything you need to know, indexes all of the pieces so that you can make sure that you have everything that's in the kit. And then it shows you exactly where to go through and attach all of these pieces. And you can see it's really straightforward and simple. And there's only a few of these steps for each side, and they're symmetrical essentially with some alterations in the pieces. So other than following maybe, I think it's 12 or 13 pages of instructions, then it's very, very quick. So this is probably an hour-long job if your vehicle doesn't already have airbags on it. And just be prepared to take off those bump stops as you get ready for it. Obviously, it shows you how to check all the things afterwards to make sure it's holding pressure and all of that. And that's the entire walkthrough of how to do it. Now, obviously, I will do the installation. It's not going to be really that exciting because most of what you're going to see is putting the pieces together, like these top plates on here so that it gets the little upper bits, or however that goes. I was looking at that well. But you're going to get the installation as a second step of this process, where I will do it, and then I'll actually give review of what my experience is and the difference between these and the originals. Because again, I use these probably every week or two because I'm doing a huge project of a pond and I'm pulling tons of rock at a time and soil for the farm. So the truck gets a lot of use and those springs get a lot of use. So I'll let you know the difference between them from a comfort and feel, and then I'll do probably a speed run installation on the next video just going over that. But this is the product itself. Again, it is much, much more heavy duty than the original that I have on it by Airlift, and it's really nice quality. So let me know what you think. Obviously, I want to see what other people are running for these lifts. When I did the research at first, I didn't find these. I think Airlift just has a really good marketing campaign. So obviously, if you have another lift kind that you've used in yours, an Airlift suspension specifically, put a comment down below. I'd like to know what other people in the Ram and Power Wagon community are using.